Welcome. I am Sharon Pender, President and CEO of the Capital Region Minority Supply Development Council and the operator of the MBDA Business Center, Washington, D.C., and the MBDA Federal Procurement Center. You know what? You are helping us make history. This is our inaugural podcast. So, again, welcome to our hot chat Minority Business Connection. We created this podcast to take a deeper dive into what minority business owners and private organizations are experiencing through this COVID economy. We have dynamic one-on-one conversations with CEOs, contracting officers, minority businesses, diversity professionals, and procurement leaders from some of the leading companies in the country. It is our goal to highlight the challenges, breakthroughs, resources, and opportunities that exist for our vast network across this region and across the country. But more importantly, we'd love to hear from you as we curate topics that are of interest to you. Please make sure you share your questions and ideas via our website, which is www.crmsdccares.com. Lastly, sit back and relax and listen in. We're doing this the podcast way so you can listen at your leisure. And don't forget to follow us on social media at CRMSDC to stay up to date and connected with us. Thank you. In order to make all of this possible, we have to thank our sponsors. They are the companies, organizations that believe in what we're doing. Here is a partial list of our top sponsors, whether it's Exelon and BGE and Pepco. Southwest Airlines is our official airline. And of course, we have the Hilton, Capital One, and we have minority business sponsors with CompuGame, JDC Events, SB Company, SP with Stroud Priest, and of course, and Ramakumaran with Amicus. And here's just a snapshot of some of our sponsors as well. And you can see our sponsors on our website at crmsdc.com. So thank you, sponsors, for all that you do. As we make history today with our first podcast geared specifically for the survival and sustainability of our minority businesses in this region across this country, we asked a very special person to share this moment with us. And we know that you will be pleasantly pleased. And when you leave this podcast, you will be well informed because we have asked none other than Victor Hoskins, President and CEO of Fairfax County Economic Development Authority. Now, Victor's resume or bio is long enough to choke a horse, but I would advise you to check him out because his career, if nothing else, I would call him up and ask him to be a mentor because his career, if nothing else, has been one that he has delivered on some phenomenal projects that we're going to talk about in just a few, but let's talk about what he's doing right now. Victor joined the Fairfax County, Virginia Economic Development Authority, known as FCEDA, as president and CEO in August of 2019. Now, remember, he's just been there since 2019, and I'll tell you why I said that in just a moment. Previously, he was the director of Arlington, Virginia Economic Development since 2015. In that role, you may remember he's one of the things he's most known for is leading the team that successfully attracted Amazon headquartered to Arlington County. That is when everybody was competing for that headquarters, and Victor delivered it, crossed the finish line. A deal that brings between 25,000 and 37,000 Amazon jobs to Arlington, stimulate creation of another 75,000 jobs in the Washington area, and generate between 3.2 and 4.8 in revenue for the Commonwealth of Virginia. Since he arrived in his current position, Google, Facebook, Amazon Web Services, and that's really hot right now. We're going to talk about that. The global law firm of King and Spalding have announced locations in Fairfax County, and Microsoft announced a 400,000 square foot software R&D center that will have 1,500 employees. This is the largest transaction in Northern Virginia. I told you, hear me now, believe me later. This man, he delivers dreams. Under his leadership at Arlington County, he's successfully implemented an innovation strategy that moved it toward technology and private sector commercialization. Other successes in Arlington included Nestle, Grant Thornton, MasterCard, Deloitte, et cetera. Now, previously, he's done a stint on Wall Street. He's been a deputy economic development, deputy mayor of economic development in the district. You may remember him during that time where he led the turnaround of the district's economy and projects such as the Wharf and the City Center. But during his career, he has numerous awards. I could just go on and on and on, but let's just bring him on. If you don't believe me, we can hear from him directly. How are you doing, my friend?
Sharon, I'm doing fantastic.
Thank you for helping us do this today. Could not think of a better person to help us move this conversation forward. I remember our time together, and we served as cabinet secretaries with the state of Maryland. And one thing I could always count on, my responsibility was minority business. You dealt with housing, but I could always count on the brother in housing to look out for minority businesses. And I remember that you even came up with some tools. You came up with some products that minority businesses could leverage. And I remember that you looked at non-traditional collateral, something people never thought about. What non-traditional collateral could minority businesses use in order to get some low interest loans? So welcome and thank you. I just get excited about everything that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sharon. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. So Victor, we have experienced over almost a year, actually February, a year, the most devastating pandemic known to man in this century. And so how are you doing with that in your role?
Well, it has been, I would not be telling the truth if I said that it's been easy, because it is not. It has been stressful on my team. It's been stressful on businesses. But within all of that, we've had a lot of victories. The chair of the Board of Supervisors, Chairman McKay, and the County Executive Hill have provided tremendous support. The County Board of Supervisors of Fairfax provides our funding, but they have not only provided our funding this year, they have put incredible support behind small business. I have to talk about this one program that they created that's been imitated across the country now. It's called the RISE program. It's RISE grant program. They had never, ever done grants directly to businesses, but they sat down and they saw the pain. They saw the pain of our small businesses, our minority businesses, our women-owned businesses, our veteran-owned businesses that were really hurt by this. And they really focused on companies with 50 employees or less, and providing grants to them to help them bridge the pandemic. No one imagined it would be this long, so they're really glad that they did this. But when we went out with this program, we went out with the goal of helping hopefully 1,000 businesses. We helped over 4,800 businesses through these grants, and 72% of those businesses were minority-owned, women-owned, or veteran-owned businesses. So the money went to where the Board of Supervisors had intended, and it saved jobs and it saved businesses. And what we say in my organization is, if you save a job, you save a household. You save a household, you save a community. So that's what we really focus on, saving jobs right now. But it's been tough, but we have had some victories within it.
Okay, great. Now, for those who don't understand the workings of an economic development organization, let's step back a bit. And Victor, can you tell our audience about what happens in an economic development organization?
Yeah, so economic development organizations traditionally are focused on building the economy of an area. Now, they come in many forms. Sometimes they are privately funded organizations, and sometimes they are publicly funded organizations, and sometimes they're a combination. Like the Prince George's County Economic Development Organization is partially funded by the county and partially funded by the private sector. Then you go to our county, we're fully funded by Fairfax County. So there are these combinations out there in different forms. The Deputy Mayor of Economic Development is actually funded by the core budget of the District of Columbia. So these organizations are funded differently, but they all fundamentally have the same function, which is to build the local economy. Now, every jurisdiction has its advantages and its disadvantages. So these comparative advantages are what the economic development leaders look for to craft a strategy that really fits their economy. And it's usually to solve a problem. For example, when I went to Arlington County, their problem was the vacancy rate. It had shot over 20%. So our job was to drive that vacancy rate down. And we did that by not moving away from government, but stabilizing our government tenants and then growing our private tenants. When I was in the District of Columbia, it was the basic revenue. The District of Columbia had been running deficit for 4 or 5 years. The mayor had a vision of creating surpluses. And I just read yesterday that, now this is like since 2012, the District of Columbia has had surpluses, and this year the surplus was $526 million, $500 million. If you are old enough, you remember when the District of Columbia had nothing but deficits, was really governed by a control board,
Right.
and really didn't even have its own hold on its own finances. That has totally been transformed.
Right.
But that's what our job is. Our job is to build the economy, make it resilient, to create, to really attack places of problems. In DC, another issue was really driving down the unemployment rate. The unemployment rate in Ward 8 was 23% when I got there. It was 11% when I left. So you look at the problem, solve the problem. Don't think about it, solve it. Don't study the problem, as a good friend of mine says. Don't admire the problem.
Love it. And so recruitment and retention, which means that all these economic development organizations, particularly in a region, I would imagine you're competing. Is that not, or is there a regional approach to getting things done?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. So let's talk about the retention versus attraction. So most economic development agencies across the nation, and there are thousands of them. They really, sometimes they manifest as a chamber. Sometimes they private organizations, sometimes it's public organization. But really what they want to do is retain their existing businesses. 66%, 2/3 of your time is spent on existing businesses. How do I help them grow? How do I help them, stabilize their finances? How do I help them get the technical assistance they need? How do I help them get some free strategy from the SBA through their counseling program, SCORE counseling program? So how do we help them do that? How do we help minority vendors access, government contracts through 8A? How do we do that? So that's part of it. That's retention. But then there's attraction, where you're actually going after businesses, in other locations to bring them here. I'll use an example of a recent high visibility one, which was Nestle. We attracted Nestle from California, from the West Coast, 3,000 miles all the way to the East Coast, from that beautiful weather in Southern California to our, sometimes great weather, but sometimes freezing weather in the Mid-Atlantic region. And we were able to do that because we have a comparative advantage. Now, yes, we compete on one level, but we really complement each other on another level. So there's a hopefully, well, now we have a more regional strategy in Northern Virginia. The 10 jurisdictions in Northern Virginia, September of 2019, we all got together, and we felt like if we really focused on not taking each other's businesses, but focused on bringing in and growing our existing businesses, that we would all be better off, and also selling each other's assets. Like we sell the assets of the wine country, and we don't have any wine country in Fairfax County, but they do in Prince William County and out there, in those other counties. We have some, for example, cloud computing locations. We have 29 of them, but they have about 100 of them over there in Loudoun County and Prince William County. So there are these advantages that you can actually play together together and it makes you stronger. So that's really a big part of what we do now, at least in Northern Virginia. We're now trying to pull there's a suburban alliance in Maryland, the Maryland Suburban Alliance, which is 6 jurisdictions in DC. We're trying to work together to craft a larger strategy for the region. And that started about 3 months, 4 months ago. And we're now in the second phase of that, where we're coming up with recommendations, but that's where we're headed. But yes, we do compete, but we don't compete. We try not to compete regionally. We have a gentleman's agreement that we won't poach. Like, I won't go to another jurisdictions and take their business. Now, that doesn't mean the businesses can't move, because they do move, but that's an independent decision. But we don't pour a whole lot of money into pulling them out. If they want to make a decision to come here, because it's better for their business, bless them. We want to help you, yes, do that, please. But we won't incent that. But if they're coming from New York, or they're coming from Chicago, or they're coming from, the West Coast, all bets are off. That's competition. So I like to call what we do locally co-opetition. Okay. And what we do nationally, I call that competition. So really, it's a very interesting where we can work together, we do, and where we have to compete, we do.
I wouldn't want to be in a dogfight with you, given your any harm. And so I understand the cooperation, but just give us a little tidbit what it was like, because that was a national competition for the Amazon headquarters. And so I'm sure you made a lot of new friends and a lot of admirers and a lot of other folks.
Yeah. Well,
and take it from the perspective of, for business people compete for business. And so if you look at that Amazon situation, what tidbits or what nuggets can you impart that, we can maybe leverage?
Well, the first thing is that we made sure that when we started this, that we had the right team. So I had incredible leaders. I had Alex Imes on my team, who is now on my team again in Fairfax County. He's my EVP. I had Christina Wynn, who is my director of business investment. And I have to say, the team that you have internally is extraordinarily important. Yes, we won Amazon, but actually it was won by not just the team in Arlington County, but we also became teammates with Alexandria, with Loudoun County, and Fairfax County. All four worked together actually to win Amazon for a single location. Now, when you're doing that, you do have some serious head-to-head friction outside of here, because there were 238 attempts at getting the Amazon HQ2 headquarters. Well, with 37,000. Right? Yeah, around the country. And by the way, there was one, I think, a proposal from Canada and one from Mexico. So it was really a North American competition. The fortunate thing was that, we were able to be victorious, but the competition was heated. I mean, and if you think about it, when it got down to 20 locations, it went from 238 down to 20 locations. When it got down to 22 locations, 3 of them were in this region and 17 were not. But 3 were in this region. That just goes to show you that Amazon was looking at the regional assets, not just at a location. They were looking at the regional assets. So 3, the DC was in the competition. Montgomery County was in the competition, and we were in the competition from Northern Virginia. And that competition locally actually even highlighted even more resources that we can combine together to be attractive. And we were very fortunate to win. I have to say, the Amazon leaders were incredible. The person that leads their real estate team was phenomenal. The one that Holly Sullivan, who leads their global economic development, she was a great person to negotiate with. And we had great partners at the state of Virginia. So you cannot do this on your own. This is something that you really have to do with a team, not a little team, with a big team. If you go to the Super Bowl, you better have a big team. I mean, you can win the league and not win the Super Bowl. It happens.
It's evident, right? And so what the lesson I'm drawing from that is that when you're going for it, make sure that you have the right team in place, regardless of what you're trying to do, big or small.
Exactly.
So that's a great lesson there. And so you're at Fairfax County. Can you tell our listeners, describe, because I know how impressed I am with Fairfax County. So can you tell us a little bit about the county and tell us why if I'm a business owner listening, well, I might even consider moving my business or starting a business in Fairfax County.
Well, Fairfax County is one of those locations in our country that is, in many ways, second to none. The educational system, the schools are amazing. They have the #1 school in the United States, Thomas Jefferson High School, #1 school in the United States. I said, I got to look into that. What does that mean? Well, when I looked into it, I was stunned. 100% graduation rate, 100% going to prepared for college. Okay.
And that's a public school.
That's a public school, right? Now, when your public schools are at that level, can you imagine what your private schools are at? So think about a company making a location decision, and they're thinking about their employees. One of the things their employees want is a great education for their kids.
Sure.
So that is one of the most phenomenal things about Fairfax County. Then it's centrally located. 2 airports. Yes, we're not flying as much as we were before, before COVID-19. I know that. But to have access to 2 great airports, Reagan National and Dulles International, is incredible. You have international access from Dulles, and you have national incredible reach, and some international from Reagan. So those 2 transportation assets combined with our metro system, which is one of the best in the country, combined with our freeway network. We have hot lanes to the airport. So we have these things in our infrastructure. So education and transportation, honestly, that is really hard to match. It takes time to build a transportation system. I am so glad that the Northern Virginia, Fairfax County, Falls Church, Loudoun County, all these counties had the vision of building Arlington County early on, 40, 50 years ago. Arlington County was in the game of transportation. But those transportation assets really are important to companies. So think about that. And then these environments where you have the urban, even in the suburban. Like you go to Tyson's Corner, there's some urban characteristics there with the suburban characteristics. And that is a nice rare mix. And a lot of companies look for that now because the younger workforce is always looking for something to do after work. And yes, we're not in offices right now, but we will be back. I'm sure before the end of the year, hopefully by the middle of the summer, early fall. But those assets become very important. So to us, it's the great schools. It's great transportation infrastructure. It's incredible amenities in places like Mosaic, which is really known throughout the region. And those are really kind of the important basics. But then you have stable government. You have fiscally, financially stable and intelligent government. If you look at our bond rating for the last 40 years, 40 plus, almost 50 years now, we've had AAA bond rating from Standard & Poor's, from Fitch and Moody's. I mean, you cannot ask for better than that. Then we're in a state that has kept corporate taxes steady for 40, 50 years. And if you look at our state's AAA bond rating, it goes all the way back almost 80 years. So stable government on top of all of those assets really are attractive to companies. And then listen to this, highly educated workforce. Okay, that's our secret weapon, highly educated workforce. We have one of the most highly educated workforces in the country. If you look at degrees in technical fields, science, technology, cyber, AI, drone technology, you look at the people who are in those fields in engineering, we have the highest number of those technical degrees of any location in the country. And the only one that's behind us is Silicon Valley. And a lot of people don't know that. And by the way, if you look at all degrees and educational attainment, we're at the really in the region, we're at the 54% range. We're at 60% in Fairfax County, and Arlington County is at 73% BA degrees plus. It's unbelievable. So that is our secret weapon. So we take you from beginning to end. Lifelong learning is loved here, and innovation is at our core. If you look at your cell phone, almost every innovative component in that cell phone came from here. GPS came from Northern Virginia. Listen, the internet was created here in Arlington. The ARPANET was the precursor of the internet. We have 70% of the internet traffic flowing through here. So I know I've gone on, and I apologize.
No, I'm mesmerized, and that's an important part of the conversation in terms of understanding what those assets are. So when I jokingly say I'm ready to move, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, it is because of those, and I learned a lot. I'm talking about lifelong learning. I did not know about the high school. I did not know about some of those things. And we have an office in in Fairfax County, and thanks to you, we had our first Virginia office in with you in Arlington, Virginia. So thank you for that. And so now, you took over this organization in 2019. Here comes 2020. Right. And so and I don't know where you were in the last kind of dip in the recession of 2008, but when now you look at this, you have some of the most prolific Fortune 500 type companies or companies in your county, some of them taking big hits like the Hilton, hospitality. I look at some of our members, not only our corporate members, but our MBEs that are in that industries that have taken those hits. Tell us what it's like as you watch this unfold, and what's the economic development organization's role as the pandemic hits your key stakeholders?
That is a great question, Sharon, and it has been one of a very dynamic, rapidly moving, flexible, and pivoting. Those are the adjectives that I can use to describe what we did and what our businesses had to do. So just the first thing, and this was incredible. So March 8th, we decided someone had potentially been exposed to COVID. We decided to close the office for a week, have a deep cleaning, and we were going to go back in. Well, we never went back. By the way, March 8th, by March 10th, we were fully 100% telework. We went from 0% telework to 100% telework in 48 hours. That's flexibility. My team was working off telephones. Only a few people had laptops, but within 3 months, everybody had laptops. Everyone had headsets when they needed. Everyone had, office equipment in the home. We transformed our organization to fit the situation, and so did our businesses. And one of the first things that we did is we had this talent initiative. We launched this talent site for the first time, and this was an area that we weren't in, to attract talent, to retain talent, to retrain talent, to grow talent. That we opened that website up in April of 2020, and we had about 300 hits that month. Okay, now we average 20,000 hits on that website a month. 20,000 hits on a website a month. We've gone from 300 to 20,000. We went fully digital. We knew that if we were going to get talent and keep talent, we had to get in that digital world. And then in May, I'm calling this all COVID impact time. So for the last year, I consider that the COVID impact time. How do you respond in the first phase? And then I think there's a second phase, the vaccination phase, and then that's the herd immunity phase. So these are 3 phases. So this first phase, we were really just responding to what was going on with our companies. We looked at our small businesses. We saw they were hurting. The Chairman McKay, came up with this program I told you about, the RISE Grant program. Him working with Rebecca Modry in the Department of Economic Initiatives, and obviously the county executive. They pushed this forward. We helped them market it. We helped people apply for it. 4,800 people helped. We did that in months. That happened in like 3 or 4 months. That would have never happened before. And we had our CBP partners at the GMU campus. They did all the administrative and intake. We worked like a seamless team. They created dashboards. I mean, all of this was happening in flow so we could save our businesses. We wanted to save as many businesses as possible, because if we save jobs, we save households, we save communities. I mean, that's really what we're up to. So we did that. In addition to that, in May, we took advantage of the fact that so many kids were graduating from school, and we did our first virtual career fair. We had about 1,000 students attend. We had over 3,000 job openings. We had 13 companies involved. And listen to this: 7 historically Black colleges and 23 other universities throughout the region. So we open the doors up to diversity. We open up the doors to everybody. And we've had follow-ons. We've had about 4 of these. 8,500 people have participated. Somewhere around 15,000 total job offered. So the bottom line is that we have really amped up how do you use the digital format to reach your clients. I have to tell you about this one event today. So we have this event today, the second, called PPP 2.0. It's right after this. So right after this, I'll be on another event. In that event, we have over 400 people registered for that event. And I thought that was amazing. I was like, wow, we've never had in the past, we would have maybe, 20, 30, 40 people. There are hundreds of people
in a room. Right.
Yeah, yeah, because of this technology.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
technology is really amazing, and we've learned to use it better and learn to get it to the people who need it better. And that's the big difference. Understanding that you're in a digital world and you have to deliver the message well in a digital format. The one that really blows me away, though, is the one that's happening tomorrow. This is on aerospace and defense advances. That we have over 700 people registered from around the world for this webinar. 700. So
Mhm.
we are changing how we get to our clients. We're changing how we work with them. But that first transition was really all about that. This second transition, as people are vaccinated, it's return to office. How do you
Mhm.
return to office safely? How do you offer those things that are really help them think about health as they move back in? And then the last, of course, is really focused on getting back to the new normal, because it won't be the same normal. It's going to be a new normal.
You're absolutely right. Defining what that new normal is. I read somewhere that you have 41% of your businesses are owned by minorities. So how do, and as you know that old economic adage that says when America catches a cold, we say minorities catch pneumonia. But
Pneumonia.
yeah, but in COVID, just like the minority population um, have devastating effects, in dying, some of our businesses are dying. Any advice, any resources? I know you named a couple of things that bring to bear that any advice you can give our businesses?
Oh, absolutely. So first of all, if they haven't applied for PPP money, they should apply for PPP money. And don't worry about the size of your business. It's 10 employees or less, up to $250,000. That's the thing. People think it's only for big businesses. This allocation is really focused on small businesses. Then we have some free resources that they can tap into. We have
Great.
this group called Start Small, Think Big. We started working with them just a couple of months ago. They are phenomenal. They provide free marketing services to help you make the transition from brick and mortar to technology delivery. They have free legal services. So if you're having trouble with your property owner on your lease because you haven't been able to make payments or you want to work them out, they will help you negotiate that. And here you go. If you're having a problem with your finances and your loan at your bank, they will help do workouts for free. They do all of this for free. And before COVID, we only had one business counselor. We have now 5 business counselors. I met with them yesterday with my team. They are incredible. And these guys are like consultants. They are free consultants. They will come in, help you develop a strategy, help you approach your market, help you define your value proposition, help you deliver your goods. They work in brick and mortar, as well as technology, the entire gambit. So if you're in any field, please take advantage of them. They are free. And then in addition to that, we have access to another 70 that are within this region that we can work with, that we can reach through our technology. So the bottom line is that we have free resources for you. So please come and get them. And by the way, it's not just us. It's also Arlington County. It's also Loudoun County. It's also Prince William County. All of us are working together. We have a workshop series that's running right now. We're on the 4th one. We had one before that, 12 free workshops on how to adjust to this COVID environment. So the technology's out there, the information's out there, the help is out there. So please reach out.
And Victor, what I'll also offer is, we have the Federal Procurement Center funded by the U.S. Department of Commerce, MBDA Center, where we help minority businesses navigate the federal government. And so we offer that support as well. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if you are looking for support, you heard Mr. Hoskins talk about the resources that are available. How can people reach out, Victor, to get more information or follow-up information of what you're talking about?
So if they're looking for help for their business, you can just go to fceda.org. That's our website. That's pretty straightforward. fceda.org. Or if you're looking for a job, or if your company is hiring and you're looking for talent, we have a website called workinnorthernvirginia.com. That's workinnorthernvirginia.com. That's the site that gets over 20,000 hits. We right now have 87,000 positions being marketed on that website. If you have some positions that you need hired in the next week, we can highlight your firm. We allow firms to put their logo on a map so that people can explore on their own and go to companies and dig down into what's available. But the bottom line is that we have jobs available. We have resources available. We want to help you because we know this. If we can save a job, we can save a household. We know if we can save a household, we can save a community.
Love it. I love it. Any more things that perhaps I did not ask you'd like to share?
Well, just that it has been amazing, the county response in Fairfax County, the county responses and city responses throughout the region, the federal response. I believe that people are taking this seriously. I believe that people are leaning into fixing this thing that has come upon us. And to me, that is the greatest hope, that we are coordinating our work and we're not trying to do it on our own, because no organization can do it. You need a big team to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. And you also need the best coach. And that's in you. And because you can outcoach somebody, right? So
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you very much for that, Sharon. You're very kind. Very kind.
No, I appreciate the time that you're spent with us today. And again, every time I'm around you, I learn something. And so one last question before you go. As you continue, and I always tease you about this, sprinkling your magic dust. This is something, that will go down. This is a part of history. As we look at the influences, Victor, from DC, change of administration, those kinds of things, as we look at the either the devastation or the opportunities caused by the pandemic, what do you see in terms of the future?
Well, I see a greater return to normal, a greater civility in our interactions, a greater patience in our relationships, a type of grace that we've been missing for a while now. I am so excited about just the tone of this administration, and also their focus on good government. You have people like Antonio Doss. I don't know, Antonio Doss, but a lot of people.
He's one of our resident experts. Absolutely.
He is an amazing public servant. This man has dedicated his entire career to public service. He's going to be on our event. It's so funny. He's going to be on our event in just a few minutes, in about 15 minutes. Okay. He's the keynote speaker. The bottom line is this: people like him are in government and they really want to help. And there has been a pejorative tone thrown over our government in the last 4 years, and it's wrong. It's inappropriate. Our teachers are great. Our public servants are great. They are dedicated. They're some of the finest people that I've ever met in my life. I'm honored to serve in the public sector. I've been back to the public sector for the last 10 years. And you know what? I wouldn't trade those 10 years for another year, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years on Wall Street, because there is something about serving others that has a reward that is beyond the financial and really, really affects the spirit. And I think that what we have back right now, and what I'm so optimistic about, is the spirit of help, the spirit of compassion, the spirit of caring. So for me, that's what I'm most optimistic about.
Okay. And for those who don't know, what I do know about Victor, he's a very spiritual man. And I always said, Victor, this is our ministry, right?
That's right.
So on behalf of all of those that you have touched over the years and all of those that you will touch in the future, I say thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all of your efforts. This has been wonderful. I certainly appreciate you.
Well, Sharon, it's my highest honor to be here with you today. Thank you.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. We had our first podcast, Victor Hoskins, and we have learned a lot. So thank you. Until next time, we will see you. And stay tuned for information for some upcoming podcasts.